Porsche, a legend on the track, an icon on the street, and a name that has stirred the soul for nearly 3/4 of a century.
The Porsche brand is the combination of tradition and future. We are very proud of our heritage.
Heritage that helps create one of the most iconic motorsport marques. But eventually, winning isn't enough.
In 1993-94, they were in danger of going under.
In its darkest hour, the brand does the unthinkable and introduces its very first SUV.
When the Cayenne arrived, all the enthusiasts were up in arms.
The machine puts the sport in sport utility and alters the industry forever.
The Cayenne changed the world.
Now, the marque is back with its latest game changer. A 550 horsepower Superbuilt SUV, known as the Gen 3 Porsche Cayenne. Deep in Central Europe sits Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia. It's a city rich with history, full of art, and overflowing with culture. Yet today, the most powerful attribute might very well be its Volkswagen assembly plant. Because this is where the third generation of the Porsche Cayenne comes to life.
We are in latest assembly hall, which is very modern and state-of-the-art.
Every day, 3 different shifts of 600 people put their hearts and souls into a very advanced kind of build.
We produce 400 Porsche a day.
400 finished vehicles per day adds up fast, and its meaning can't be overstated. The Cayenne is responsible for over 30% of Porsche's global sales, and many industry observers believe it is the most profitable SUV on the market.
It's a very special brand, and I believe all the boys when they were young were playing with the Porsches. It makes us very proud.
The factory isn't just a big part of the bottom line, but also a large facility in its own right.
About 90,000 square meters, and we have 160 operations.
The 160 stations are nearly as fast as a finished Cayenne.
We are building in approximately 3 minutes takt time or cycle time.
While the stations are vastly different, the goal is always the same.
Musí byť perfektná úplne, pretože...
It has to be perfect because it is all about detail. Everything has to be fixed perfectly. Everything correct to the millimeter, and everything has to fit.
If your engine is not working, then the customer is not satisfied. If your glass is leaking the water, the customer is not satisfied. So the car must be done very exactly and with passion and love.
Affection that starts being instilled at Station 1 in the final assembly hall.
We are here at the beginning of the assembly line. We have a painted body from paint shop, and here we identify our vehicle with the RFID tag, which helps us through all the stations in the further process.
The RFID, or radio frequency identification chip, is a modern-day barcode system that uses radio waves instead of line-of-sight communication to track an item. In the case of the Cayenne, it allows the factory team to know the precise location of each vehicle and its unique specifications.
At the beginning of each station, we have a RFID reading station, so all our machines and all our technique knows what kind of Cayenne is being built in this station.
After a machine is chipped, each new Cayenne receives a very warm welcome.
We are hitting the bodies for the installation of the ceiling around the panorama roof.
The bodies are heated up in preparation for the next station, where a state-of-the-art robot gets its glue on.
We are putting the seal on panorama roof. The seal is coming in one piece in 250 meters long line, and we are cutting it exactly to the roof opening size.
The enormous 34-kilogram panoramic roof allows passengers to see nearly everything. However, in the past, it would have been nearly impossible to envision a Porsche being built in Slovakia.
Porsche is iconic brand, and nobody dreamed about to build a Porsche in Bratislava.
The Bratislava factory is founded in the early 70s and has multiple owners until Volkswagen purchases it in the early 90s. The tiny investment quickly pays off.
And we started with a very small manual manufacturing of Passat 26 years ago. It was very excited to set up here the first real automotive plant. Therefore, it was a very exciting time in 1991. And then, step by step, we add additional products, additional technologies. We had painting, we had welding, and now we are one of the most modern and the most sophisticated plants in VW Group.
Volkswagen Bratislava má dlhú históriu.
Volkswagen Bratislava has a long history. We have already been producing cars for 26 years, and we gradually started with hand production and upgraded to automation. Thanks to our experience, we have many specialists whose skill we used for the preparation of the new Porsche Cayenne.
The simple starting point leads to a massive 2 million square meter site and eventually the chance to build the key machine for one of Volkswagen's most iconic brands, a Porsche Cayenne.
It was like family business, and now it's really a big, sophisticated factory producing 6 different brands for VW Group. We are proud of that.
It's a singular type of pride that mixes the nationality of one country with a symbol of another.
Vyrástol som vzdušnou čiarou asi.
I grew up 1.5 kilometers from here, so I know the area. I'm proud to be Slovak. And I have to say, I am proud that I can work for Porsche.
The factory is also a major component of the Slovakian economy.
Volkswagen is one of the most important employers in Slovakia and most definitely in this region.
Ja osobne si myslím, že je to vecou prestíže. Je to vynikajúca
I personally think it's a question of prestige. It's a fantastic honor. And also for Slovakia, it means we're a very significant producer, a very good employer, and also a significant contributor to the state economy.
VW is the biggest private employer in Slovakia and contributes to GDP 15 to 20%. So it's tremendous importance for the Slovak economy.
A 15 to 20% economic contribution sounds nearly impossible. Yet the automotive industry is responsible for nearly half of the country's industrial goods and helps employ over 250,000 people. Perhaps even more impressive, Slovakia is the largest producer of cars per person in the industrialized world. The country is home to just over 5 million citizens, yet in 2017 it produces over 1 million new vehicles.
Rozhodnutie vyrábať Porsche Cayenne v Bratislave ako finálny
The design to produce Porsche Cayenne as a final product was a big challenge. It meant expansion of the building itself. We had to build a new bodywork shop, a new assembly hall, new trial run. It cost hundreds of millions in investments and new teams of people. Our family has expanded and we took in many new workers.
With so much riding on the success of the machine, VW spends over 800 million euros to build a brand new assembly hall for the 3rd generation vehicle.
Once in a lifetime chance that we are building a new assembly hall.
It's very big investment in not only an assembly hall, but the whole manufacturing, because the Porsche Cayenne, 3rd generation, is a completely new car with completely new technologies. It's a lot of pressure, of course, a lot of expectations to fulfill our quality goals and also to produce the demanded volume of the cars.
High-stakes pressure, reinforced by a very personal form of honor.
It is super to be working on a product which is spread around the whole world and for such a luxury brand.
A luxury brand that today is known the world over for building lust-worthy high-performance machines. Yet not all that long ago, it was a mark on the financial ropes, until it found salvation in 4 doors. The Porsche Cayenne is a supremely fast machine that blends attainable performance with relative luxury. Something that the brand has managed to do successfully for a very long time.
The heritage is very important. Our roots reach back to 1948, the first sports car with the name Porsche, and since then, 30,000 race victories, 7 generations of Porsche 911. There's no other automobile brand like this in the world.
These days, Porsche's icon is the famed 911 sports car. Yet both the marque and the machine owe their existence to a single decision made in post-World War II Germany.
Porsche had the guts to try something new. It was directly after World War II. People were building up Europe again.
At the time, most European automakers are simply trying to get back on their feet by building basic transportation. Porsche flies in the face of conventional wisdom and does the opposite.
The 356 came out in June of 1948. This car was mind-blasting. The 356 was not basic transportation, it was a sports car for connoisseurs. And especially in the very first years after World War II, people were so hungry for that.
When Hollywood discovers the 356, it launches the brand to stardom.
The American market was important in terms of the image of the brand. Especially in California, there was a very big club sports scene. And then in a second step, movie stars like James Dean discovered the Porsche brand, and these movie stars were photographed in their cars. And these photos were also shown in Europe. And so the image of Porsche became changing, and from a race car manufacturer, it became a lifestyle brand.
The transition to a lifestyle brand is underscored when the marque launches the 911 in 1963.
If you ask a little boy to draw a sports car, in most cases the result will look like a Porsche 911, so maybe it's the archetype of a sports car.
The vehicle becomes an instant icon and begins the brand's manufacturing evolution from sports cars to everyday driving machines.
The idea of a sports car is changing a lot in these days. Today it's not enough to have a sports car with a high performance. A sports car must be today a reasonable car.
These days, Porsche's most rational machine might very well be the 3rd generation Cayenne.
The product is very emotional, and you see the product on the street, and maybe majority of the staff are car fans.
Car fans turn constructors, who are extremely efficient thanks to the integrated nature of the Bratislava site. The factory features a metal pressing facility, body shop, paint line, and final assembly hall, all in the same complex.
The 4 general operations. The first one, press shop. Then you have to put the sheet metal together to form your body. And body shop, it's welding, gluing, and other technologies. And then you have to put the color on your body, so that's a paint shop. And last but not least, you have to put all this part to your body, and that's an assembly shop.
Today, it takes 4 basic steps to build the Cayenne, a machine that is universally accepted as a true Porsche. Yet a decade and a half ago, that wasn't exactly the case.
When the Cayenne came out, Porsche had only built sports cars up to that point, and now they were building an SUV, which is basically the complete opposite of a sports car.
At the time, the company is in dire financial straits.
By the mid-90s, they were selling maybe 10 or 12,000 cars a year.
The mid-90s drought forces drastic measures. Just like with the introduction of the 356 to a struggling post-war Europe, Porsche bucks convention once again and debuts their very first SUV.
Porsche took a gamble and said, we're going to make the Porsche of SUVs.
The move is met with harsh reactions from the fanboys and the faithful.
When Porsche decided to introduce the Cayenne, I'm trying to find the words of anger to describe to you what I felt, because it was like violation, anger, and then this disbelief that they could possibly be that stupid to kill their entire company over volume.
The purists lost their minds. No one was sure what to make of the Cayenne when it first came out, a Porsche SUV. Is it just an SUV with a Porsche crest on the front of it? Does it actually do anything? Can it go off-road? Can it go around a racetrack?
What we saw was a shift in the way Porsche thought of itself. Rather than the maker of a sports car, they were going to be making cars that happened to be the sportiest in their individual segments. And that was a fundamental shift.
Some of the Porsche devoted saw it as they've completely lost their way. There was some fear it was going to kill the brand.
Now they're saying we're going to build an SUV, the antithesis of the sports car. It's big and tall and top-heavy. It's got 4 doors. It doesn't scream around a corner. It doesn't go on a racetrack. Like, why? Why would Porsche, of all companies, make something like that? That's not what they do.
Before the purists calm down, the Cayenne becomes the best-selling machine the marque has ever produced. Instead of destroying the brand, it saves it.
Suddenly, overnight, the practical Porsche was born, and sales just exploded. You didn't have to give up practicality. You could buy a Porsche and drive it around every day.
It didn't create the segment. There were luxury SUVs before the Cayenne, but it exploded it. It made the segment real, it made it popular. It showed everyone else that you could do it.
The machine stays true to the company's roots, and sales explode.
To Porsche's credit, they made the Cayenne handle well, they made it powerful, and they gave it off-road chops too, so it sort of could do everything.
They did it, and man, that'd be like buying Apple stock in like 1984. If you could have somehow known, if you had bought Porsche stock in 2002 and sat on it for 20 years, it'd be a whole different world for you right now.
The machine offers practicality done the Porsche way.
Part of the Cayenne's success and why it works because it was incredibly powerful. The first turbo had over 400 horsepower. The Cayenne sort of brought the idea that you could do a twin-turbo V8 SUV.
The engine wins over buyers, but some still question the looks.
I think the greatest shock was what it looked like. The front end looked like very 911-ish. They wanted there to be a familiar connection, and it was sort of split how people felt about how it looked. I personally liked the way it looked. I thought it was always a cool, interesting-looking SUV, but a lot of people were kind of horrified by it.
While the appearance is debatable, the machine's success is not.
Porsche is profitable today largely because of the success of the Cayenne.
The Cayenne doesn't just save the brand, it also transforms the entire auto industry.
So there was some risk involved when Porsche launched the Cayenne, because no one had ever seen a Porsche SUV. But now that everyone is following Porsche's playbook and every luxury brand has an SUV, they face a lot more competition. So they have to stay relevant, they have to stay on top of their game.
Trying to stay on top continues today inside the Cayenne body shop, where it takes just 11 hours to manufacture a shell.
The takt time in this bodywork manufacture is about 2.5 minutes.
The factory is fast, pumping out 400 new bodies every day, thanks to an army of robotic help.
Altogether, there were 750 robots installed in our body manufacture.
The automation is crucial for the third gen because the body is primarily built from aluminium.
The robots which are working here are able to do individual activities within a few tenths of a millimeter precision.
Building up a body begins by assembling the undercarriage, where the front, middle, and rear floor sections are welded together.
At the moment, we are in the manufacturing line of the outside panels. We also use electro-welding of aluminium in this line. It is an advanced welding technology.
Finished sides are moved to the framing station, where they meet the completed floor pan and are screwed into place. Next, the body heads to the hanging line, where man replaces machine.
We are at the line where the door is installed. It is the final station in the bodywork manufacture. Then they hand the bodywork over to the painting department.
Once the doors are added, another set of craftspeople screw the bonnet and rear hatch into place.
Yes, it's a station where you see hardly any robots. Only at the end of the line are there 4 robots which control the measurement of the bodywork. So everything in this station is done by hands, by manual work. All the parts assembled in the bodywork are controlled. They are fine-tuned so we could ensure the best quality.
The finished body heads directly to the paint shop, where it will take another 88 robots and 18 hours to colour a Cayenne.
At the moment, we are in the paint shop. We get the body from the body shop and put them through individual steps of the process here. We do the surface treatment painting and final paint.
The bare metal bodies are primed. Then a set of electrostatic robots spin some colour at 50,000 revolutions a minute.
Where we are at the moment is a workplace for applying the basic color. We can imagine that the basic layer is as thick as the thickness of a hair.
Finally, each shell receives its clear coat. Even though the final machines glimmer, it's the people working at the factory that shine.
It's hardly imaginable, of course. It was my dream when I was a small child to have a Porsche car one day. I could not have imagined that I could drive a Porsche or to build one as I am today.
Four-wheel drive dreams that often end up in driveways around the world. Yet surprisingly, the Cayenne isn't the marque's first attempt at an off-road machine. The third-gen Cayenne rockets from 0 to 100 in 4.1 seconds. Has a top speed of 286 kph and can take the entire family on an off-road adventure. Yet remarkably, it's not the marque's very first purpose-built off-road machine. That honor goes to the Volkswagen, or People's Tractor.
No one knows that Porsche made tractors.
It might be seldom remembered today, but in the early 1930s, before the Porsche car company even exists, the German government sees a need for a better-built tractor. So they enlist the services of young engineer Ferdinand Porsche and task him with solving the problem. The result is what eventually becomes known as the Porsche Super, an air-cooled, diesel-powered agricultural machine.
No one cares that Porsche made tractors because Porsche forged its reputation on sports cars. People don't realize that Porsche didn't start making flat-six rear-engine 911s. They started with four-cylinder 356s. So what our perception of a brand is mostly rooted in what was successful, and what was successful were the sports cars, not the early trucks.
While the sports cars get the glory, it's actually the Cayenne that keeps the lights on.
They were losing money. Then you fast forward about a quarter century and suddenly they're what everyone wants to be. And a lot of that was built on the success of the Cayenne.
The 911's not for everybody, but now we're going to build something for everybody. And it changed everything for the industry. And suddenly, boom, this big, expensive luxury SUV hits. They're making a boatload of money off of them.
Just like the machine, the factory moves with speed.
About 7.5 hours from the body to the test drive.
It's a highly complex build with a variety of different steps.
Inside assembly shop, I put the cable harness in the body, the powertrain with engine, transmission, then put seats, bumpers, all interior, and at the end of the line, the car is assembled, and you can turn the key.
Twisting the key brings joy to drivers, but to keep factory workers feeling good requires some ergonomically friendly tech. So the factory relies on two types of conveyor systems to move partially built machines around. The first is a wood platform.
As an operator, you stay on the wood. It's very pleasant, it's ergonomic. We can move up and down the body to achieve ergonomic position.
The second conveyor system hangs the machine from the top. While some tech moves the machine from station to station, other tools are intended to help move workers themselves.
This is a seat you cannot buy in a supermarket. It is called the Raku seat. And it is designed to improve the ergonomics of the assembly process.
The seat allows a craftsperson to swing inside the vehicle with ease.
We are paying a lot of attention to the way how our workers are working, and we are trying to make the best conditions for them possible on the market.
In an effort to take as much physicality out of the build as possible, the team uses a variety of lifting devices, like the one used to install the panoramic roof.
The modules are pretty heavy, so we are making everything possible for our workers to make the process as ergonomical as possible.
DC workers aren't picking up a whole seat by themselves, 70 pounds worth of seat, and setting it inside a car. They've got a machine that is designed to do one job, and its job is to help you pick up that seat, carry most of the weight of it, and you guide it into place and set it into the vehicle.
While big pieces are installed with lifts, the smaller parts are sorted in a warehouse and placed on trolleys that move with specific vehicles.
You order your car, we know your specifications, we prepare the set in the logistics, we just put it right behind the car, so the worker has all the parts needed specifically for your car right behind the Porsche.
Organizing the parts is extremely complex because there are a whole load of pieces.
There is a very high demand on the logistics process, approximately 5,000 different parts.
To keep the factory humming, the team uses a just-in-time inventory system that actually owes its existence to some of the brand's darkest hours.
In the early 90s, Porsche wasn't selling a lot of cars. They weren't profitable, and they decided to survive, they had to change. And so they took a Japanese approach where it's just-in-time inventory, modernized fully, and they gained a lot of production efficiencies, and that sort of carried over into the Cayenne.
The lean manufacturing process devised in the early 90s is now a hallmark of the brand.
Each task we do is based on small details, so we have to pay careful attention to everything.
Small details that lead to big pieces like the windshield install.
This is the assembly line where we are putting the windshield.
After windshields, it's time to add the famed Porsche crest.
I am proud that I can work here. I am proud that I can work in this section and on the Porsche.
Today, the Porsche badge is recognized across the world as a signifier of high performance and success. Yet amazingly, it exists thanks to just one man.
Max Hoffmann was a very important man for the Porsche brand. In October 1950, Max Hoffmann imported the first 3 Porsche cars and he gave them to race drivers to make them famous in the American club sport scene.
At the time, the cars are already sexy and sporty, but Hoffmann doesn't think they stand out enough. So he asks Ferry Porsche, then head of the company, to meet him in New York for dinner. It's a meal that will change the course of automotive history.
In 1951, Ferry Porsche traveled to New York City to meet Max Hoffmann, and Max Hoffmann asked him to give his car a kind of badge, a kind of crest, which symbolizes European tradition and quality.
The fabled myth is that the two men share a bottle of wine and in a fit of inspiration draw the crest on a napkin. But that's not actually how it happens. Instead, Ferry heads back to Germany and starts a one-of-a-kind artistic competition at the local university.
The first prize was 1,000 Deutschmarks, which was a lot of money, but none of the ideas convinced Ferry Porsche.
Down on his luck and not liking any of the designs, Ferry turns to an unlikely source for help.
Luckily, there was a Porsche engineer named Franz Xaver Reimspies, who was not only a great engineer, also loved to do cartoons and comics. And he had the idea to combine the coat of arms of the state of Baden-Württemberg together with the symbol of the city of Stuttgart. And over it, he put the name Porsche as a protecting roof.
By the mid-50s, half of all Porsche sales are in America, and the crest becomes a global icon.
The composition was a kind of fantasy crest, and it was patented in 1952. And yeah, from this moment on, it was on the front hoods of all Porsche cars. Today, it's one of the best-known company logos in the world.
The badge gains its fame thanks to history. Yet on the line, the attraction is more personal.
This is also a symbolization that we fulfilled the dream.
I feel good because I have partly worked on it. And it is a beautiful car.
As new Cayennes continue their trek, in another part of the factory, they start to assemble the powertrain.
We are using different engines, with most powerful one being the V8 with approximately 550 horsepower, 700 Newton meters of torque.
The 550 horsepower twin-turbo V8 engine is handcrafted 7 hours away in one of the most moto-romantic cities on Earth.
Stuttgart ist eine Autostadt.
Stuttgart is a car city. It became big due to vehicle manufacturing. Stuttgart has Zuffenhausen at its core, and Zuffenhausen is the birthplace of Porsche.
This is Zuffenhausen, a tiny suburb outside Stuttgart, Germany, and the ancestral home of Porsche. Around here, motor oil runs in people's veins, and the latest attraction is Porsche's new 8-cylinder engine plant.
Wir sind hier in einem Werk 4.
We are at Plant 4, where we manufacture V8 engines for the Cayenne.
In 2015, the brand invests over 80 million euros to build the facility.
1 year old, also wir sind 1 Jahr alt.
We have been here for 1 year and have slowly ramped up the V8 production.
Back in the early 1950s, Porsche employed just over 100 people in Zuffenhausen to build cars. How times change. Today, there are over 1,200 craftspeople working in engine manufacturing alone.
Also wir versuchen diesen Motor natürlich so nach dem Porsche-Gedanken.
Of course, we try to manufacture this engine based on the Porsche philosophy. So the lean principle is always important. We try to limit the process on the production line to assembly only, have a good flow, and provision the material only when needed.
Good flow is crucial because every 24 hours, they hand assemble over 200 power plants.
Wir nutzen das erste Mal
We are using a so-called Carrera track for the first time, in which the carrier is transported on the belt itself, individually driven by a motor. This communicates very intelligently with the bolting stations. It is an innovation for us, and I believe it's a novelty worldwide.
Aber so ungefähr 6 Stunden braucht der
It
Motor.
takes approximately 6 hours from the first to the last screw.
Just 6 hours creates a lifetime of pride.
Ich glaube, die sind sehr stolz.
I think the employees are very proud to be working here. You can see it on their faces. Of course, they dream themselves of driving one and can put themselves in the shoes of the customer in terms of fulfilling a childhood dream by driving such a V8.
Every 3.5 minutes, a fresh block arrives on the line.
Die Geburt ist die erste Station. Eine Geburt.
The birthplace is the first station where the block and the crankshaft are added.
After the crankshaft is swung into place, connecting rods and pistons are installed. Then the cylinder heads go on.
Da wird der Motor mittlerweile zurecht.
At other stations, the engine comes to life through assembly of the camshaft,
Seine Nockenwellen.
chains,
Wird sauber eingestellt, dass nachher von den
and where it is finally adjusted to run properly.
The line is 432 meters long and runs in a U-shape until the very end, where finished engines are hoisted off the line and sent to a test cell.
Ich glaube, die Jungs wissen das. Die wissen, dass sie sozusagen eins
I think the guys are aware that they are assembling one of the most important components of a Porsche. And I think that makes them very proud, and it shows. It motivates them to do their best and get the best out of the product.
Completed engines are then shipped nearly 800 kilometers from Porsche's birthplace to perhaps their most important factory, where it'll take another 7.5 hours to bring the marque's newest off-road machine to life. From the very beginning, the Porsche Cayenne has carved out a distinctive niche as a sporty four-door, four-seat machine.
Porsche is a sports car brand. It's a brand built on performance, but it's not an exotic brand. I mean, everyone has seen a Porsche. Not everyone has seen a Lamborghini or a Bentley in their lives.
The semi-bespoke machines are offered in a variety of trim levels, with base models starting around 50,000 euros, while the top-of-the-line versions run all the way up to a staggering 126,000 price point.
Like the sports cars, the Cayenne's available in a number of different models. There's a base Cayenne, there's Cayenne S, Cayenne GTS, Cayenne Turbo S.
The multiple variations have different powertrains, yet every single one is built in the very same way inside the final assembly hall, thanks to a very simple but ingenious jig.
In order to make our process more efficient, we use different color codes. We have only one sled for different engines, and the worker puts the right color, and his sled is then specific for his engine. So right now, here you can see that the color red is V60 FSI, and all his pins are set for the red color, so we make sure we have the correct motor with the correct position.
Mated engines then move by an overhead hanger to the drivetrain sub-assembly line.
The whole car is put down here. The motor is put inside and the whole undercarriage is completed, and it carries on along this line to the next over there.
A station later, they build the suspension up piece by piece, starting with the air springs. The air suspension system is capable of raising or lowering the Cayenne over 100 millimeters, depending on the driving mode that's selected.
Porsche has always prided themselves in building daily driver sports cars that you could drive every day if you wanted to. The Cayenne sort of took that to the next level by making actually a practical SUV. They just infused it with some Porsche performance, and that made it sort of unique.
Some of that performance is infused one station later when they add a dynamic chassis control unit. The electromechanical anti-roll system prevents body lean during hard lateral acceleration in a corner. The next step is to bolt on a very special hand-me-down from the 911 GT3. A rear wheel steering system that allows the Cayenne to turn extremely tightly. When the system is engaged and a driver moves the steering wheel to the right, the rear wheels turn slightly to the left. This sharpens the machine's turn-in and allows for easier parking maneuvers. Soon it's time to hit the brakes. Workers add both the standard iron rotors and the new, optional carbide-coated units, which reduce brake dust by 90%. Finally, they install the center differential, which allows the machine to send power to different wheels when needed. Finished powertrains are then moved to the next line.
This is the wedding, the powertrain coming from sub-assembly and meeting his body and putting together. It's one of the crucial operations. The car gets his hearse, his engine, his transmission, axle, a tank, his housing system, everything that you can drive.
Most automotive factories have one critical engine marriage station. But inside the Bratislava facility, they use 6 different cells to bolt the powertrain into place.
We have 6 stations where the automatic machines screw the screws, and for the quality issue, it's important to have reliable systems.
Shortly after the marriage cells, the team adds the front and rear bumpers.
We are approximately in the middle of the assembly line, where we can see how the bumpers are being installed on the car.
Once again, the factory's ergonomics are on display.
You can see that our height is adjusted exactly. We do this to ensure that ergonomy is optimal for our production workers.
The front bumper of the machine is particularly important because it hides a very powerful secret. The Cayenne features an electrically adjustable grille that can open or close to help minimize drag at speed or enhance engine cooling at a dead stop. Further down the line, the machine enters Build Area 5, where it receives its high-performance rubber.
Susanna is about to install the wheels on the Porsche, which is really essential for the car. You can see that the manipulator comes automatically to the exact position where the worker just pulls the trigger and the spinners turn at the same time. The wheel is being installed. We are getting them in a sequence, front wheel, rear wheel, exactly as the cars are being produced.
Most car factories use one hoist to lift the wheel and another tool to tighten it into place. But here, a single device does both jobs.
We put the wheel on the car and we tighten the bolts with the one manipulator. We don't need to use two of them as is used in most of the companies.
On the next line, the remainder of the interior goes in.
We are here in BA6, which is a center console assembly. We are getting it just in time for our supplier. There is a lot of cabling inside. It is all made customer specific, and each car is special.
Porsche, unlike the other German brands, has resisted having a controller, like an iDrive style controller to control everything. They'll either have a button or they'll have a touchscreen.
We are here in section 6, where the front seats are being installed, as you see here.
In my workplace, we put the seats and doors in the car, and the machines are helping us. They grab the parts and install them with precision.
The seats arrive just before they're needed and perfectly match the build sequence. The lean manufacturing allows for a vast amount of options.
If you order a Porsche, the number of options are dizzying. It can take you weeks to spec one out. You can pick different stitching, you can pick leather dashboards, different leather colors. Anything and everything seems possible option-wise, which is kind of cool and something that's unique in the market.
We get many different options of the seats. We have the 14-way, 18-way, movable with memory function, and you can also choose many different stitches. The possibilities in the Porsche world are almost unlimited.
It certainly costs a lot of money if you start ticking every single option box and you get leather vents and things like that, but that's something that's really only available in far more expensive vehicles.
Once the seats go in, it's time to complete the interior with a variety of parts and pieces.
Here we are near to end where most of the body is finished. We had the powertrain installed, we have the electricity, the cables are laid, and we are in the very final part where the interior is being finished.
Porsche interiors are, for the most part, very driver-centric. They're less about the passengers. Everything is set up for the driver to utilize without devoting too much attention from the road. So everything's close by and logically arranged.
After 7.5 hours, it's finally time to twist the key, fire up a new Cayenne for the first time.
Favorite station is probably end of the line. When I see the final product and I can see the product is okay, that's a really good feeling.
A really good feeling that echoes throughout the build hall.
It is certainly a nice feeling when we see the result of our work. When we try so hard and spend long hours on it, and then it is a nice feeling seeing the final result.
The machines look finished, but they still have a very important date with the quality control department.
We are at the end of the finish line. That means there is the final control here, which checks the car. We call it ZP8. And here, the control workers, as you can see, check the cars and give the last look over, that everything is correct.
Finished Cayennes are celebrated in Slovakia as a stamp of approval for their burgeoning assembly prowess. Yet they're also cherished around the world as the most successful Porsche model over the past decade and a half.
Society and the customer base of Porsche changed. At the beginning, there were industrials and aristocrats who bought Porsche sports cars. This changed and the Porsche became a perfect all-day sports car.
A perfect everyday sports car wrapped in an SUV's body.
You have a Porsche that's kid-tested and mom-approved, right? You have the ability to have a Porsche that doesn't conflict with your obligations as a parent. People are going to gravitate towards that.
The Cayenne is so successful and so important now, they can't make it radically different because they might scare off a whole bunch of their customers. And if they lose a whole bunch of Cayenne sales, that screws up their entire business plan. The third generation is an evolution. It doesn't mess with success. It doesn't ask the customer to come in and say, oh man, I don't know if I like this new one or not. It says, here's everything you liked about the last one with some new technology and a little new style. Nothing's going to turn you off, just better.
The business case might be safe, but the driving experience is still completely Porsche.
They're really alive. They're really direct. The steering is really precise. They're cars that really want to race. And they sort of feel like they have a racing heritage, even though they will probably go nowhere near a racetrack.
When you get into a Porsche, you feel like the person who designed the way the brake pedal feels is the same person who designed the way the steering feels. So the car responds as a whole. They have this cohesion to them that is really unmatched by any other car company.
The engines are incredibly powerful, and they sound really good too. So it's this full sensory experience that you get in a Porsche that you don't necessarily get in some other SUVs.
It's the machine that helped launch the sporty SUV era. A vehicle that changed the fate and fortunes of an entire brand. And an SUV that altered the automotive landscape all by itself. The third generation Porsche Cayenne.
The success of the Cayenne inspired basically every European manufacturer to build SUVs. Things like the Maserati Levante are directly a response that just took the Italians a while. But everyone wanted to be in the Cayenne game. They saw what it did for Porsche's bottom line, and they wanted that for their bottom line too.
We're at a point in history where the sedan is dying. And when you look in the luxury marketplace, SUVs dominate. So even though it was a small kernel at the beginning, which was mostly pioneered by Porsche, the SUV as a whole will be the dominant force, period.
That's just the thing with the Cayenne. It's as special as the sports cars are to the SUV world. The Cayenne is what the sports cars are to the car world. It just drives really well. It's fun to drive, and it just sets itself apart a little bit by being a little sportier and being a little more fun than the rest of the SUVs.